Like I would say, don't buy exclusive rights to a beats that was sold non-exclusively prior.
It happens. Obviously it happened with Old Town Road. It happens in a lot of cases. That's really what you want to talk about today. All right. What's going down? This is the Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. This is episode number 33. My name is DJ Payne One. We're with the new improved Dame Ritter. He's got lighting. He's about to start doing makeup tutorials. What's going down, Dame?
Yeah, man, got to constantly get better. I mean, with everything, I know that was kind of a little bit of a joke, and I appreciate the humor, but there's also a message to artists to always get better at what you do. That was like one of the dope things about Facebook, and I know I'm taking this somewhere that you didn't want it to go or didn't necessarily know.
You're gonna take the whole episode someplace I don't want it to go. But
yeah, but like it's so dope. Like when you have Facebook and you've been posting on Facebook or any social media for quite some time, and you kind of go back through the years to see how things have progressed. Now that I'm older, it's a little sad because I can see how old I'm getting. But separate from that, you see how like everything just gets better. The quality, or should, like the quality of what you're doing should get better over time. So when you look back 2 or 3 years, whether you're a producer or an artist or a graphic designer or videographer, like hopefully you see a lot of improvement in the quality in what you're doing. So just trying to do that for the podcast and for our live MEC sessions. But yeah, my bad for taking it there, Payne.
No, it's all good. Honestly, the secret to reverse aging is just don't do anything for your health until you're in your late 20s, early 30s like I did. And now I look back on my old photos, I'm like, wow, I look way healthier today than I did back then. So life is good. I know you want to talk about some stuff I don't want to talk about. So, but first, let me just follow up on last week's conversation about the scamagers, aka scamming managers. I got a ton of messages, just an influx of messages of people saying, I'm either working with a manager that's doing what you described, or I got that exact same message. And I think it's good that people are reaching out and sharing their stories and saying, yeah, I paid that manager's fee and realized that it wasn't helping me. I made that mistake. I'm sharing that publicly, and I think sharing your mistakes publicly is really a admirable thing. But the problem is, and hopefully you'll want to respond to this because I'm sick of responding to this because I think I've said it probably a million times throughout my life. A lot of the people, when they contact me and say, yeah, thanks for talking about that situation. Now, how do I get a real manager? Tell me, how do I find a real manager? Who can I pay to really to manage me properly? So instead of me doing a big old facepalm on this podcast, how do you respond to that message?
Well, before I respond to that, I mean, I do want to reiterate that in addition to learning the things that you need to do to make you money, the Music Entrepreneur Club, you should be learning things to do to save money or to not lose money as well. So if we can save you from spending that $200 on somebody that's going to scam you, that means you have some money to invest to be actually being a part of the Music Entrepreneur Club. $200 would pay for more than a year of the Music Entrepreneur Club. So consider signing up. Also, if you don't want to join the MEC, at least subscribe or at least join our Facebook group and share your stories in there, because there's a lot of interaction and sharing of stories in there and tips and advice, and I post articles and whatnot. But to find a manager, and I'm going to be honest, man, like that is an area that the music industry needs more of. Like it needs more up and coming managers that are serious and are willing to like dedicate themselves to learning what a manager does and then actually doing that. I haven't come across that many young up and coming managers that are ready to work with artists in a serious fashion. So there's definitely an opportunity there for young up and coming managers that want to be serious. And, I think managers should be a part of the MEC as well. They should be joining. Like the stuff that we talk about in the MEC, it's not just for artists and producers, it's for everybody. It's for anybody that wants to be a part of the music industry. But the way to find a manager is to just continue doing what you're doing and make progress and get better at your craft, get better at social media, get better at marketing yourself so that what you do attracts a manager. As you become more successful, you're going to attract the right energy, and you just kind of wait until there's somebody that comes along. Well, I guess you can be proactive at reaching out to people too. So it should be both. Like but you should have something to show them when you do reach out. Like you should see some progress. You should see, a person like me, if I was introduced to an artist, I'm not trying to manage any more artists. I'm fine with the people that I work with now. But if I was looking to manage an artist, I would kind of look back a year, 2 years, and see where that person was, and then see where they are now, and see, what they've done to hopefully achieve growth. So just continue learning the business, continue getting better at your craft, continue developing your story and being consistent, putting out quality stuff, and hopefully the right person finds you. That's really the only advice that I can give. And that's how I've seen it happen the most. It's not an easy thing to find. There's not that many good managers that are out there looking for a lot of new talent, because the good managers probably have their hands full at the moment.
Yeah, I feel like asking that question is the same question as saying, hey, how do I get an amazing, well-paying, fun, rewarding job with options for horizontal promotion or vertical promotion? You're like, yeah, man, I can't answer that question. Anyway, let's talk about the stuff that I don't want to address. Your man, Mark Tavern, went on a rant today. Not a rant. I shouldn't say that. Number one, shout out to Mark. He spoke on our panel in New York, and I really enjoy that conversation, and I enjoy what he tweets and shares online. But today, he set his sights on the beat licensing economy.
Well, we should probably talk about what he said, because he basically was saying that the deals from an artist perspective are very bad, because it's very confusing in terms of rights ownership of these songs once you buy a beat license, right? And I know that there's different types of beat license, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation, because artists typically don't have the budget when they're starting out to buy exclusive beats from producers. They can't spend whatever it is, $500, $1,000, $2,000. They don't have that to be able to, purchase beats from producers the conventional way, right? To have a producer agreement, you typically pay a producer fee, an advance of maybe on an indie level, like $500 to $2,000, what have you. And that is what transfers the master ownership to the artist, so that the artist owns the master of the full song. And in return, the producer gets that fee. They probably get a producer royalty, and they get typically 50% of the publishing. Payne, am I correct? Is that conventionally, that's the typical structure if you're not doing beat licenses, buying beats from BeatStars?
For me, yeah, that's how it's been.
Yeah. So with beat licenses, obviously you're only paying $20, $30, $40, however, something cheaper to be able to license the beat, but you don't necessarily, so the rights ownership gets a little murky. And sometimes because, for example, if somebody buys a beat license, they now have to abide by the restrictions of that contract. They don't own the full master of that piece of that work. And then they typically, you can only monetize up to a certain amount of streams. certain amount of downloads. And then once you hit that ceiling, and to be honest, probably most artists don't hit that ceiling. So this is probably why it's not a more talked about conversation. But let's just say, you're only allowed to monetize up to 500,000 streams. Let's just say that's the case. Now you have a song that goes viral, it hits 500,001. What should happen after that, Payne? Like what should an artist do if it went beyond the 500,000 that was allowed by the contract?
Well, according to the terms of the average license, you just have to renew the license, so you'd pay another $30-$40, which to me doesn't seem unreasonable. But I do want to make just a statement to be devil's advocate, because sharing rights with someone is something that a lot of recording artists that contact producers selling beats online really get hung up on. They want ownership of the track. So somehow in their heads, if they pay $40, they're entitled to
My bad.
to both sides of the copyright of the beat, which to me just I guess it's probably not them being mean-spirited or greedy. It's just kind of them not really understanding the value, because I don't think anyone would walk up to them and say, hey, I'm going to buy your entire albums, the rights to your lyrics for $100, and they would not feel insulted. So, it goes both ways. But having said that, sharing the rights of a track is something really typical. I mean, if you rappers and singers and songwriters work with other artists all the time, whether it's a feature, whether it's whatever, so you're sharing the rights with that person. I think we characterize it in the context of talking about working with producers as something a lot more difficult than it needs to be. Musicians are constantly sharing rights. Think about a band. Bands are sharing rights with all their members, and you very rarely hear about that being such a logistical nightmare.
Right. Well, let's just walk through some of these scenarios to make it more clear and to not have like a murky discussion. So if you do surpass the streaming, you said just buy another lease, and that would give you like another 500,000, right?
Yeah, and you can get, I think, correct. And I think most producers, if not all producers, because by default, if you use BeatStars or Airbit, that's just kind of like a default option for you. The unlimited rights are something that these producers offer. So that would eliminate the need to renew the license, and that's normally...
So if you buy an unlimited license, that allows you to not have to keep re-upping on the license. You can just keep making money from Spotify, Apple, and as a producer, you're not entitled to any of those royalties if you just do a beat license?
No, I mean, I guess here's the thing. So copyright is just copyright. That's just a law. So by default, if you're rapping over somebody else's beat, then you're sharing the copyright ownership, and therefore you're sharing the royalties. I mean, that's just how publishing works. That money's not coming out of the rapper's pocket, though. But
I'm not talking about publishing. Again, I want to make this as simple as possible. I'm talking about the money that you earn directly from on the master side of like from Spotify. So what you get from DistroKid, the money you get from DistroKid. If you buy a beat license on BeatStars, you don't have to pay the producer anything out of that up to 500,000 streams if that's within the contract. And once you go to 500,001, you should purchase another beat license to get another 500,000 streams.
I think technically the default BeatStars contract gives master royalties in the artist's favor at like 95%. So in practical terms, let's just be totally honest, that in most scenarios, that means the rapper's getting all of it. I don't know producers who are tracking unsigned artists down for 5% master royalties off of a TuneCore upload. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, something that should be addressed. And that's just a matter of education. That's kind of what you always say. If we all understood how the royalty system worked, I think rappers and producers would feel a lot better about working with each other, and they'd be on top of their own business in a way that benefits them just as much as their collaborators. Because let's be real, most people don't even sign up to a PRO, and of the people who do sign up to a PRO, they're not registering their titles.
Right.
So no one's getting paid, and yet a lot of us are arguing about royalties that we're not even getting because we haven't registered for them.
Right. So in Mark's tweet, he basically alluded to and this may not be the standard BeatStars agreement, but I guess the contracts that he's read in regards to beat licensing, the producer owns the master of even the final work. Is that what you've seen? And that was like one of the biggest issues that he had, and I probably would have an issue with that. I would have an issue with that as well. In these have you seen in these beat licensing agreements is that the producers own the full masters of the final work? You're on mute.
Yeah. I'm just gonna open the default license now so that I don't talk out of my ass right now, but no, that doesn't sound reasonable to me.
Okay, so if that is the case, then that is something that artists should address, because these are the default license. Like you can change your contract. You probably should. You probably should have a lawyer draft up your own producer agreement. And artists, I would encourage it too, so that they know exactly, what you're signing up for, what royalty payment you're responsible for. I probably would never rely on a default agreement from anywhere.
Okay, so here's what it says. So I'm just reading this. For the avoidance of doubt, this is addressed to the person who licenses the beat. And I'm sure this language seems really jarring, but it says, you do not own the master of the sound recording rights in the new song. You have been licensed the right to use the beat in the new song and commercially exploit the new song based on the terms and conditions of this agreement. Notwithstanding the above, you do own the lyrics or other original music components of the new song that were written or composed solely by you. So basically, that's just saying you have to share that with the producer if you're licensing the beat. You don't own the full master. Because if you do own the full master, what that means is that you own the instrumental as well as your lyrics. And then therefore, this is a work for hire situation, which it's not.
Well, what you just read, that messaging is kind of confusing. And I know that like all legal documents are typically confusing, and that's probably why you need a lawyer to do all of this stuff and to, explain to you exactly what's in these agreements. But to me, it should say, like, if you are splitting the master ownership, it should say you own 50% of the final, sound recording.
Well, I think the issue with putting a number on it is that you might have features, you might have a hook on it. You don't necessarily know how to break that percentage down, but what they are saying is that anything you add, and I thought that was pretty clear. It says you do own the lyrics or other original musical components of the new song that were written or composed solely by you.
Could it say that you like the producer owns 50% and then the other 50% gets split however you guys?
You know what? I wish we had a lawyer on. I wish we had Carl or Adam on here. But to me, I don't know if I'd want to put a number on it, just because you go from talking about 50-50 on the master to the royalty points being 95% in the rapper's favor. So that might get the artist who's licensing the beat thinking they owe me as the producer 50% of all their master royalties, and they don't. So right. I think I'm pretty happy with the way these contracts work. I use BeatStars. I don't use Airbit or TrackTrain, but I'm assuming that their licenses are all pretty much. What
was that third one you said? TrackTrain?
Yeah, TrackTrain. There's TrackTrain. There's License Lounge. There are a couple sites out there.
Got you. So another thing that gets murky, right, is like, okay, because you guys are selling this beat. You probably have a beat that you've sold, maybe 1,000 times, and then an artist comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to purchase this beat exclusively," right? But you had already sold the beat license hella times before. So what happens then to all of the people that purchased it before? Can they still use the beat up until the limits they have? But how do you handle that situation, Payne?
I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't have precedent over whoever else buys it exclusively down the road. I don't. So okay, so me personally, that's what I do tell artists that if they want the exclusive, I say, look, it has been licensed before. You have to acknowledge that. Now the big issue that I run into, and this has nothing to do with exclusive versus lease, is just the content ID chaos that is the internet. And mostly it affects me. It doesn't really affect other artists because I'm always trying, these distributors like TuneCore are always trying to monetize my beat videos on YouTube and because they're just by default claiming ownership, copyright ownership of whatever their users upload, which is a major problem. I wish that could get fixed, but I always just dispute and I win, pretty much every case. But with regard to your question of how that works once someone gets an exclusive license to a beat that's already been licensed, not exclusively to a bunch of people. Well, one, I discourage a lot of people from even taking the exclusive licensing route because, again, what's the point? If you have let's say you have unlimited rights, what's the point of having exclusivity if the beat has already been out? You know what I mean? You already have the rights to exploit it commercially. You're already making money off of it. It's already your song, so why spend that extra money? But number two, I've heard lawyers say yes, the people who license it have those rights, no matter what happens later. If someone comes and buys an exclusive, they still have their license, which makes sense to me just because they did it first. And they have a legally binding agreement that doesn't say, hey, by the way, if someone buys this exclusively, you're SOL. And then I've heard lawyers say, no, that's not the case. So it's one of those things that I'm not comfortable answering beyond a reasonable doubt.
So, but we're saying, because I would probably say the same thing. Like, I would say, don't buy exclusive rights to a beat that was sold non-exclusively prior.
I think if you have to, like, it happens. Obviously, it happened with Old Town Road. It happens in a lot of cases. And you didn't hear with Old Town Road a bunch of legal problems, jumping through the woodwork. And you didn't. It's happened. We can name hit after hit after hit. And what ends up happening then. And Mark actually tweeted about this, too. He said, what happens if an artist gets signed to a label and the rights in their beat license are non-transferable? And it's like, well, the labels should probably be paying anyway. So the label's buying the master. The producer created the master in part. The label should, compensate the producer for that. But it does happen all the time, and I've never seen it become a major problem. And even in the situations where you go from multiple licensing situations to Atlantic coming in and saying, we want this record. It's been licensed before, let's handle it. So yeah, I think these problems seem bigger than they actually are in the real world.
Yeah. I encourage artists to license beats in the beginning because, you got to get your reps in, you got to, build momentum, and you probably don't have the budget to work exclusively or to get artists to make beats or to get a producer to make beats just for you. But I do think once you start establishing some momentum and you have some things going for yourself, you should lock in with a producer and avoid, the beat licensing route.
Or the way I look at it too is, remember 20 years ago when you couldn't just go on the internet and find a million different beats at your fingertips that you could actually get rights to.
Right.
What were artists doing? They were putting mixtapes out where they were rapping over industry beats. That was the biggest thing ever. And you notice how that's kind of died recently. And I shouldn't say recently, it's died over the last 10 years because, number one, there are all these copyright problems with that, and especially with Content ID, the labels are really running things on the internet, so they'll either take your video down or they'll snatch up all your Content ID money if you do use an industry beat. But I think also another big reason is you don't need to, because you can go online and just for $30, $20, what, even a lot of these beats are free. Some of them are free for profit, some of them are free for nonprofit. You can just get those beats, you make an entire mixtape, and you don't run into copyright problems, and you just spent $150 on your whole project.
Right.
That's your production budget. It's really nothing. So compared to the old system had problems. There are always going to be problems. But I think that the current way things are working on a big picture level are a lot simpler than they were before.
Okay. So last question on this. Let's just say with syncs, right? Like, say a beat that you sold non-exclusively, somebody took it, made a song. Now somebody wants to put it in a movie, and let's just say that the fee that the movie is going to pay is $5,000 on the publishing side and $5,000 on the master side. Has anybody ever come back to you with this scenario? And if they did, how would it work? Or even just if it's a hypothetical, how would you expect that money to get split?
I mean, I've done sync licenses before. I'm under the impression that whatever percentage of the publishing you own, that's how you break down.
No, but I know, but for the not so because on the master side, the BeatStars default agreement didn't give you an exact percentage of the master. Once the money comes in, let's just say $5,000 was paid for the usage of the master side. What would you expect to get paid on both the publishing and the master side?
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, everything's negotiable, but whenever I've had a synchronization scenario with another artist, we've just split it evenly, because that's money coming from an outside source, and we all shared in the creation of the song. So what part of the song did you make? You did half of the song, I did half of the song, or maybe there are three of us. Obviously, I did the beat, someone else did one verse, someone else did another verse and a chorus. It's hard to break that down into 15, 20, 30, whatever. So in that case, we just kind of all swallowed our pride and said, let's do 33.33 across the board. So it is negotiable, and I think.
But what if sorry for cutting you off, but what if the artist came to you and was like, look, like it's me, like my dad is the person that is doing these movies or that's helping me get these songs in these movies. Like, I feel like I deserve more than 50% because I'm the one that's also doing the legwork and like getting this stuff in television and film and getting these opportunities. Do you still say like, no, the song's still 50% a beat, 50% lyrics? We should split it that way.
I personally, I would say, well, it's negotiable. So what do you propose? Because when I've worked with other companies that license music, they always take a percentage. They always take a cut. So that's nothing new. I mean, if I look at the average manager's commission, which is, let's just say 20%, cool. You want half of your money as the writer and then an additional 20% leaving me with 30. I guess that's fair.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously you are somebody that's easier to work with because you've been in the game for a minute and you just kind of understand like the long game and the value of relationships and everything in between. I just feel like it gets murky with some of these default agreements, because there's going to be scenarios that come up that aren't addressed, that would have been addressed in a more conventional producer agreement. And if you're not working with somebody like you that's more level-headed and experienced, these conversations can probably get out of control.
Well, that's what I'll say this. I think a big problem with beat leasing is that you have two parties, right? You have the person leasing the beat and the person providing the lease. They're working together, and in a lot of cases, neither of them understand what the licensing agreement actually says. You know what I mean? And so that can create all kinds of problems, and it creates a situation where the producer might have something in their heads, and the rapper that licenses the beat might have a totally different idea of what the what the agreement actually states. And I've been through this in a lot of scenarios where someone will contact me and say, "Oh, why is this and this happening? You don't get this." And I'm like, just review the agreement. I understand the agreement, and I'm more than willing to explain it to you if you have questions. Not in the capacity of a lawyer. If you start asking me all this extra stuff that's above my pay grade, I'm just going to say you need to get a lawyer. But we enter into agreements every day. We enter into an agreement when we purchase a cell phone plan, and they issue an agreement. Beat licensing agreements are a lot simpler, I would say, than a cell phone plan agreement. But a lot of us are in this habit of not even reading or understanding what's in those agreements that we enter into. And then when something happens that we don't think is in the agreement, we might flip out. And not even look at the agreement and understand it. Just turn up and get mad and get in our feelings because it's not going the way we thought it would. And so I put the burden on everybody. If you're licensing beats, understand what that means. If you're selling beat licenses, understand what that means. If you're not educated as a producer, and I'd say it's probably the burden's more probably on the producer because they're the ones making money off of this. If as a producer you really don't understand what's in those licenses, then you're running a business that you maybe aren't ready to run at this point. And so my recommendation is, in addition to just trying to learn as much as you can about the business yourself, it's not a bad idea to take some of these default contracts and take them to a lawyer and say, hey, what does all this stuff mean? It might be an investment early on to have a sit down with a lawyer. It will be an investment early on. But understanding that means you're protecting yourself, and you can explain this to your potential customers. And your potential customers are going to appreciate that. You're going to be a much better brand, a much stronger brand that provides a much better customer service experience if you do understand what it is that you're selling.
Yeah, maybe we should make that recommendation to Abe and say, like, hey, because I'm about to do some webinars for BeatStars for FanConnect, the text marketing platform it's integrated into BeatStars now. Maybe I'll tell Abe, you should probably do some webinars so that people, where you break down the default licensing agreement so that your producers understand, the rights they're entitled to in the default agreement.
That would be cool, unless we do it first.
Well, I'd rather have somebody else. I'd feel more comfortable with either, if you feel like you.
No, I'm talking about us getting a lawyer. I'm not talking about us doing it. No, I'm not.
I mean, maybe we could do it. We could do it for them. Shoot, I don't know, but yeah, it's yeah. I just don't want young people to run into a lot of issues. At the end of the day, like, the number one thing that we always go back to is education. That's what we're here for. But yeah. Anyway, did you? I know that topic took quite a bit. Did you have a topic that you wanted to discuss? For a lot of things happened in
they did
past week.
Let's see what lasts until next week, and then we'll discuss that. I had a couple ideas. But it's not stuff that's going to date itself. So thanks for making me uncomfortable and talking about some stuff I didn't want to talk about. Shout out to Mark Tavin for starting the conversation on Twitter. And you can join us at musicentrepreneur.club.com. If you enter the promo code MEC podcast, you are eligible for free sessions. So please do that. We'd love to see you in our live sessions.
Yeah, I know I say this every week. We've been having some really dope sessions. This past Monday, we had Kelly Jackson on, who is Sway's business partner. And she was talking about how artists and producers get to come up to the show, because I think they have a segment every Friday where artists and producers are highlighted. And she literally gave out her email address. Now, I'm not going to say this happens every week with every guest, but she is the person to contact if you wanted to submit your stuff to potentially be on Sway in the Morning on Sirius Radio. So the people that we bring on, the people that Payne brings on, like, these aren't people that are struggling, that haven't been in the music industry that long. Like, these are people with decades of experience that are talking directly to you on a weekly basis, trying to give you guys the gems necessary for you to have your own career in the music industry. And we only charge $12.99 a month. And with Payne just said, if you just wanted to pop in for 2 weeks and try it out, MEC Podcast is the code. You really need to be in these sessions. My session's coming up. We have Brianna DeMaio, who is the founder of Taste Creators and the founder of a new service called Music Business How To. And then Futuristic is going to be joining us at the end of the month. I mean, we have a really dope lineup, and I really encourage people to check it out. So yeah, I can't emphasize that enough. And also, we have the MEC tour coming up. We're going to announce the cities probably in the next couple of weeks, but we're going to be in the Midwest this time, probably in the May timeframe. So this is the tour where we actually come to different cities and host about a 3 to 5 hour conference. Because I know that some people don't really understand exactly what the MEC is, our live online sessions. They prefer to see us live and talk live. I understand that. That's cool. So this is an opportunity for you guys to do that. And we'll make our way probably to more cities later in the year as well.
MusicEntrepreneurClub.com. We'll catch you next week. Peace.